Hello, everyone. Welcome to the SEC Breakdown, our weekly college football show. This week, the breakdown is going to be less extensive than usual. COVID-19 pandemic is certainly rearing its head throughout the SEC. We've had games postponed, and a couple other games have had some COVID issues. This is probably the most we've seen the pandemic affect a week of games so far. Guys, I guess, how much do you feel like this season is hanging by a thread, or is there some reason to be seriously concerned about the fate of the season?
I keep telling people, don't look at the finish line, because you know the finish line, it could end up being next week. I'm curious what they're going to do with uneven games if they end up with, some teams playing 10, some playing 9, some playing 8. You've got, let's say Georgia and Florida end up with 2 losses, but Georgia ends up playing more games and Florida won the head-to-head. How are they going to decide that? Are they going to allow Alabama not to play a game the week before the SEC title game and Florida has to play a game? There's so many things still in the mix that have to be decided. But all you can worry about right now is playing your next game. I mean, we've got a hurricane off the coast right here. So supposedly it's gonna blow through. You may hear it come through at some point. It's gonna blow through, and they're gonna still play a game. But it is just 2020 is unique, to say the least.
You said unique. I'd say maybe relentless is a better word, because it just seems like every week more things come. The game you're going to be covering, I mean, one of the coaches isn't going to coach because he has COVID-19. I mean, that's as insane as it's gotten on the SEC. And you just mentioned looking at the finish line. It's hard to know what they'll be able to do, because they put in that December 12th date as all right, well, we can push games to this game if we need this date if we need to. But LSU needs to have 2 games on that date. It can't play both. The SEC said, we can play games December 19th, the day of the SEC championship game, but one of those games has to probably involve Alabama, and Alabama's probably already scheduled to be somewhere December 19th. So it's hard to see how the SEC will finish this unless, we all get an email sometime this week saying, hey, we've moved these 9 games around to different dates of the season to try to piece this thing together and see if it'll work. But yeah, I mean, I haven't covered a football game since Halloween, and I'm not sure when I'll cover my next one. Yeah. So it's a really weird year to be covering SEC football.
And we like to think that this is only a this year thing. We're not going to think of this spilling into next year at all. But you just think about the legacy of this season. Let's say Florida plays that extra game against LSU and Alabama doesn't. That could be the difference between a Kyle Trask Heisman and a Mac Jones Heisman. And we're looking at these 2 guys. Kyle Trask gets the extra game. Mac Jones doesn't. One of them's the SEC's representative in New York, if that ceremony's even in person. The other one plays 1 fewer game and his stats look a little worse. I mean, there's so much that can come off of just one breakout at LSU this week that throws the 2 of the 3 contenders for the playoff in this conference into complete flux. What happens to Texas A&M? Does this effectively block them out of the playoff just because Alabama can't lose an extra game at this point, and now they can't miss the SEC championship almost? I mean, there's so many factors more than just will these games be played, that this extends to next year and to the future, and it also extends to the other conferences of, well, if these SEC teams are playing fewer games, do you start to reward the conferences that got to play more games, or does this get lumped in with the Pac-12 and Big Ten who are playing fewer games? Just, there are so many factors more than just, are these games happening? And I don't think anyone can sort it out until we know what finishes the season.
I think we're going to have an SEC champion. How fairly it's decided, I think, will perhaps be in question. And with no bowl games having 6-win requirement this year, bowl games saying you don't have to have a win requirement. I say, if you're having a hard time getting your games in, well, you can just shift one back and make it your bowl game, and let that cap the season. Maybe Tennessee can play Vanderbilt in the bowl game or something. That would be a way you could cap the season and decide who the worst team in the state of Tennessee is.
That'd be a great Music City Bowl.
Yeah,
perfect.
Well, think about this. I mean, the SEC athletic directors voted, I guess, yesterday to play games on the 19th, and what a weird day that's going to be. Where let's say you have Florida and Alabama playing the SEC title game, but leading up to it, there's other games all week, all day. That's going to be weird. I wouldn't want to be. I pity Mark Womack, who's already had to reschedule everything once, and now may have to reschedule things. And to me, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, but to me, Alabama LSU is more important than Florida LSU because look, they break things into divisions for a reason. So a division game is more important than a non-division game. So I don't know if the SEC feels the same way.
And I like the fact that the easiest way to break this logjam would have just been saying, screw it, we're playing the Iron Bowl this week. You have 3 days notice, but they couldn't pull that off in any way. Josh, you could probably talk about that better than anyone, but just imagine if they said, that's how we're fixing it. Surprise Iron Bowl. Have fun.
Yeah, that would have been the funniest outcome. Turns out Auburn has problems too, so that wouldn't have worked. But yeah, that would have been an absolute disaster. It's like, hey, this is the biggest game of your season. We're gonna play it in 4 days. Just figure it out. You guys got this, right?
Yeah, let's get to the games for this week. Vanderbilt gets Kentucky this week. We've talked about Kentucky dealing with some COVID issues on its coaching staff. Is this the week for Vanderbilt, or will the winless season march on?
I mean, I think if they don't win this game, you can pencil in 0-10.
Tennessee's still on the schedule, Pat.
That's true.
No, I'm thinking the 99 Gamecocks are going to be off the hook pretty soon. I just don't see a Vanderbilt team pulling off this win. I mean, if they couldn't beat Mississippi State last week when Mississippi State couldn't figure out how to move the football for 3 quarters, Kentucky can't move the football, and I mean, that bodes well for them.
Kentucky can at least play pretty good defense, which is why they'll probably win that game. But the biggest thing I'm surprised about this game is CBS had an opening when Alabama and LSU were postponed. And instead of picking this up, they just said, we're not going to show a game. This was out there, guys. Go grab this one. But now they're taking the weekend off. So
let's go straight from the masters to people who have not mastered football.
South Carolina, Ole Miss, there was some discussion of maybe making this our game of the week. We decided on another one, but really just from a competitive nature. I think I'm going to take Ole Miss. I feel like maybe they've looked a little better recently than South Carolina, though it's a low bar. What do you guys think about Will Muschamp against Lane Kiffin?
Just purely from an analytical perspective, the thing that South Carolina has been getting crushed with the last couple of games is LSU and Texas A&M both ran for 250 plus on them. LSU ran 54 times, Texas A&M ran 45 times, and now they have an Ole Miss team that's averaging 50 carries per game and leads the SEC in rushing yards. It's going to be tough if South Carolina can't stop the run, because I think LSU won time of possession by 15 minutes, Texas A&M won time of possession by 17 minutes. Their defense just couldn't get off the field, and this is an Ole Miss team that loves tempo, but also runs 90, 95 plays a game when it's clicking. So if South Carolina can't get Ole Miss off the field, there's a reason this spread's 11, 12 points right now. We'll see if Ole Miss can actually do the thing it's expected to, because that almost never happens. But if you read the tape properly, Ole Miss should be able to control this game.
I see the same thing. I think South Carolina will probably be able to put up some points because Ole Miss is very good at giving up points, but I don't think it'll be nearly enough for South Carolina to keep pace with that offense if it's clicking like it's supposed to.
Will's a great guy. I loved him when he was here. I still talk to him all the time. I texted him after they beat Auburn. But as a head football coach in this conference, just not getting it done. So the question to me isn't does Ole Miss win? The question is, does Ole Miss embarrass South Carolina and push it to a point where they just have to make a change?
And as a side note for Pat and perhaps the Gator faithful, Will Muschamp versus DJ Durkin in this game. If you
That's right, yeah.
Early 2010s Florida teams and want to see those defenses in action, they're not playing very well right now.
That brings us to our game of the week, guys. It's Arkansas at Florida. Obviously feeling pretty good about itself at the win over Georgia, but so is Arkansas. The surprise team of the SEC this year. I think this is 2 coaches that are pretty popular right now in their respective places. But I think Florida is going to be hard to stop at this point. You mentioned the schedule left from here. I'm not sure that I see anybody touching the Gators.
Florida secondary still played poorly against Georgia. They've not been good all year. And this is the most dangerous quarterback they'll face. I mean, think about it. They got to face Kentucky and whoever the hell they put out there. They got to face Vanderbilt, a freshman who throws a lot of picks. They got to face Tennessee, and you know the situation there. And then, of course, LSU, where they may shut Miles Brennan down. So this is a guy who can throw the ball. We know that. 14 touchdowns, 3 picks. So Felipe will be a little charged up. There's no question about it. I thought the message Dan Mullen sent to his team was a good one on Monday. You can't be a great team if you don't get better every week. And if you don't play better than you did against Georgia, you can lose this game. So I think Arkansas has Florida's attention, which is a big concern you have after a big win. But obviously they're going to play well. And I do think this is the most dangerous team they may play the rest of the way.
We have to mention Sam Pittman's not coaching in this game.
Yes.
So it goes to Barry Odom. And Barry Odom might be a lot of people's pick for the Broyles Award this year, the way he's turned around that Arkansas defense. They were anemic the last 3 or 4 years, and now they are one of the stoutest groups in the conference. So we'll see, can Barry Odom keep his defense performing at the high level when he also has to go back to being a head coach like he was at Missouri the last couple of years? That's gonna be the thing we have to watch in this game. I think Florida still pulls it out.
Florida's playing too well and has too much talent for Arkansas to win, especially at the Swamp. But it is a fun matchup, which you would never think at the beginning of the season that this would be a fun matchup. But Felipe Franks going back to Florida with kind of like a hungry underdog type team playing the SEC East favorite. It's a fun matchup. But I think Sam Pittman being out, if Sam Pittman was there coaching, maybe that helps Arkansas a little more in a bid for an upset. But I think either way, Florida's too talented, and I think Florida will probably kind of build on what it did against Georgia and win that game pretty easily.
Well, this brings us full circle with ending with a game where the head coach is out due to COVID-19. Sam Pittman is out for this week, but we'll leave it there for now.